Welcome to NCERT material. In this video, we're covering the complete Class 10 Biology chapter, How Do Organisms Reproduce? We'll go through asexual reproduction, flowers and seeds, human reproduction, and reproductive health, with every diagram you need for your board exam. Let's start with the big question. Why do organisms reproduce at all? First, reproduction lets organisms multiply in number, and that keeps life continuing on Earth. Second, chromosomes inside the cell carry the information for inheritance, stored in the form of DNA molecules. Third, when this DNA is copied, the copy is similar to the original, but never perfectly identical. And fourth, that small difference is called variation, and variation is the basis for evolution of living beings. There are two types of reproduction. In asexual reproduction, only a single parent is involved. No gametes are formed, and the offspring is identical to the parent. It's extremely useful for rapid multiplication, and it's common in lower plants and animals. In sexual reproduction, both parents are involved, gametes are formed, and the offspring is only genetically similar to the parents, not identical. It's slower, but it creates variation, and it's the common mode in animals, mammals, and humans. Asexual reproduction happens through 6 main modes. Fission, seen in amoeba and plasmodium. Budding, seen in hydra and yeast. Regeneration, seen in planaria and a lizard regrowing its tail. Fragmentation, seen in Spirogyra and planaria. Spore formation, seen in Rhizopus. And vegetative propagation, seen in potato, ginger, and bryophyllum. Let's look at each one closely. First, fission. In binary fission, the parent cell divides into 2 equal daughter cells. Amoeba is the classic example, and it can divide in any plane. The nucleus lengthens first. That's called nucleokinesis. And then the cytoplasm divides, which is called cytokinesis. In multiple fission, the parent divides into many daughter cells at once, as seen in Plasmodium, the malaria parasite. And in Leishmania, which has a whip-like structure at one end, fission always happens in a fixed, definite orientation. Next, budding, best seen in Hydra. A small bud grows as an outgrowth on the parent's body, caused by repeated cell division at a specific site. As the bud grows and matures, it eventually detaches from the parent and becomes a new, independent Hydra. Since no gametes and no DNA mixing are involved, the new Hydra is genetically identical to its parent. Budding also occurs in yeast. Now, regeneration and fragmentation. Regeneration is the ability to grow back a lost organ or body part. Think of a lizard regrowing its tail, or planaria regenerating from a cut piece. Fragmentation goes a step further. The entire body breaks into fragments, and each fragment grows into a whole new, complete organism. This happens in multicellular organisms with simple body organization, like planaria, hydra, and Spirogyra. Vegetative propagation is reproduction using the vegetative parts of a plant. The root, the stem, or the leaves. Through roots, Dahlia produces new plants from adventitious roots. Through stems, potato reproduces using its tuber and ginger reproduces using its rhizome. And through leaves, bryophyllum grows new plantlets from adventitious buds along its leaf margins. Why is vegetative propagation useful? 1. Plants grown this way bear flowers and fruits earlier than plants grown from seed. 2. It lets us grow plants like banana, orange, rose, and jasmine, which have actually lost the natural capacity to produce seeds. 3. Since every new plant is a clone, genetic similarity, and any desirable trait, is preserved exactly. 4. It helps produce seedless fruits, which is commercially very valuable. And 5. It's simply a cheaper and easier method of growing plants. Spore formation is best seen in the bread mold, Rhizopus. Spores develop inside small, bulb-like structures called sporangia, which sit atop thread-like hyphae. Each spore is protected by a thick wall, which lets it survive until it comes into contact with a suitable environment. When the sporangium bursts, the spores are released into the air. Under favorable, moist conditions, these spores germinate and grow into a completely new Rhizopus individual. Now let's move to sexual reproduction, which happens through the fusion of 2 gametes, one from each parent. This fusion is called fertilization. During gamete formation, chromosomal fragments are exchanged between homologous chromosomes, a process called genetic recombination. And it's exactly this recombination that produces variation in the offspring, which is the whole evolutionary advantage of sexual reproduction. In flowering plants, the flower itself is the reproductive organ. It's made up of 4 whorls: the calyx, made of sepals, the corolla, made of petals, the androcium, made of stamens, which is the male part, and the gynosium, made of carpels, which is the female part. Flowers can be unisexual, containing only a stamen or only a carpel, as in papaya and watermelon. Or they can be bisexual, containing both, as in hibiscus and mustard. Let's zoom into the reproductive parts. The stamen, the male part, is made up of the filament and the anther. Inside the anther, pollen grains develop. These are the male gametes. The carpel or pistil, the female part, is made up of the style, the ovary, and the stigma. Inside the ovary, the ovule contains the egg cell. The female gamete. When pollen from a flower lands on the stigma of the same flower, that's self-pollination. When it lands on the stigma of a different flower, that's cross-pollination, and this transfer is carried out by agents like wind, water, or animals. After pollination comes fertilization. First, pollen is carried to the stigma, then, a pollen tube grows out of the pollen grain and travels down through the style. Through this tube, the male germ cell travels down and reaches the ovary, where it fuses with the female germ cell. This fusion is fertilization. This produces the zygote. The zygote develops into an embryo, the ovule develops into the seed, and the ovary itself grows and ripens into the fruit. Now, reproduction in human beings. Like most animals, humans reproduce sexually. This requires sexual maturation, a period called puberty, during which the body becomes capable of producing germ cells, eggs or ova in females and sperm in males. Let's look at the male reproductive system. Sperm are produced in the testes, which sit inside the scrotum, outside the main body cavity, because sperm production needs a temperature slightly lower than normal body temperature. Inside the testes, the seminiferous tubules produce sperm and also secrete the hormone testosterone, which regulates sperm production and brings about the physical changes seen at puberty. Sperm travel through the vas deferens, and along with fluid from the prostate gland and seminal vesicle, they form semen, which passes out through the urethra inside the penis, the copulatory organ. Now the female reproductive system. The main reproductive organs are a pair of ovaries, which produce eggs, and also the hormones estrogen and progesterone. Each month, one ovary releases an egg, which travels through the fallopian tube, and this is where fertilization actually takes place. The two fallopian tubes join into the uterus, a muscular, elastic organ, which opens into the vagina through the cervix. This connects directly to menstruation. If the egg is fertilized, the resulting zygote implants into the uterus lining, which is richly supplied with blood to nourish the growing embryo. But if no zygote forms, the thickened inner lining of the uterus simply breaks down, causing bleeding through the vagina, and that is menstruation, which typically follows a 28-day cycle. The developing embryo is nourished through a special tissue called the placenta, which provides a large surface area for glucose and oxygen to pass from mother to baby. The full gestation period, from fertilization to birth, is about 9 months, and around the age of 45 to 50, women reach menopause, when the ovaries stop releasing eggs. Finally, reproductive health. This means complete well-being in every aspect of reproduction: physical, emotional, social, and behavioral. It includes preventing sexually transmitted diseases and avoiding unwanted pregnancy through contraception, which can be mechanical or barrier methods, or hormonal and chemical methods. A healthy society also needs a balanced sex ratio, which depends on educating people to reject harmful practices like female feticide and prenatal sex determination. Before we finish, let's do a rapid revision of the key terms. Nucleokinesis is division of the nucleus. Cytokinesis is division of the cytoplasm. Sporangia are the structures that hold spores. Fertilization is the fusion of the male and female gametes. The zygote is the cell formed right after fertilization. The placenta is the tissue that feeds the embryo. Puberty is the period of sexual maturity. Menopause is when the ovaries stop releasing eggs. Semen is a combination of sperm and fluid from the prostate and seminal vesicle. And gestation is the time from fertilization to birth, roughly 9 months. And that brings us to the end of the chapter, How do organisms reproduce? Make sure you revise the diagrams closely. Binary fission, the flower, and both reproductive systems carry the most marks in the exam. Thanks for watching this video from NCERT material. If it helped you, please like, subscribe, and share it with your classmates. See you in the next video.